Hey, it's Darren here in the kitchen talking about issues like pay, benefits, and the ability to feed your family. This will be a video review of my latest article. OMG, can the UAW strike fund afford $625 strike pay? Big question, right? Candidates are running for delegate, convention's a few months away, and the resolution to increase strike pay to $625 it's generating interest across the UAW. I'm getting a lot of calls. I see a lot of delegates running on this issue. And there's a good reason why. The increase to $500 after the last convention has literally benefited thousands of UAW members that have gone on strike for economic justice. And the thing is, that 523 is the same percentage, 38, of our wages as 625 will be in the next contract. Okay, 2028, prior to the next contract. So that level can benefit UAW members on strike while keeping the strike fund sustainable. And I want to point this out. If you read the second paragraph in this, even with this higher benefit, the strike fund has continued to grow. In December 2023, which is 2 months after the stand-up strike, the fund had a balance of $727 million. As I write this, the union meeting was last week. The financial secretary gave us a report that the fund is at $838 million. Okay, so in a few months, we're going to reach the $850 million, in which the dedicated half hour of monthly dues goes away. And that is prompting some anxiety among folks, right? Can the strike fund sustain not getting that extra money and pay out benefits? I mean, that's the question. Will it go bankrupt? Will it damage the strike fund? So is it sustainable? We have an answer. The answer is yes. And will it damage the strike fund? It will not damage the strike fund. And the point of this article is to prove that. So we're going to start by looking at the last 12 months of disbursements from the strike fund. How much money did the strike assistance program provide over the last year to local unions and members? Now, not all of this is weekly benefits, but most of it is. So let's look at that. I'm not going to go over each one of these monthly figures. These were directly from the reports issued by the Secretary of Treasury, but the total at the bottom, you may see there, $28,653,760.89. So $28 million provided over the last year by the International Strike Fund for people on strike, for members on strike. So we're 2 years away from the May 2028 expiration of the current agreement. And that's when we may have to go on strike if it has to happen, right? So how much money will be left? Let's take a look. Let's assume that the next 2 years are like this year or last year. So we'll double that to figure out the total disbursements over the next 2 years. And that figure comes out to be $57,307,521.78. So let's take that figure, 57 million and change, and we're going to go from the 850 million and assume it just stops right there. Okay, the extra half hour goes away. The fund is stuck at 850, frozen, shall we say. As far as income, can it afford to continue to disperse strike funds? Let's take a look. There it is. The strike fund balance when dedicated dues are discontinued is $850 million. Minus, we're going to subtract 2 years of projected payments of $57 million or so, leaving the fund with a balance of $792 million and change. So even with not a penny, right here, without a penny of dedicated dues going into the strike fund, and 2 years of strike assistance payments going out, the fund will have a balance of over $792 million. At this rate, the fund would still have a balance of over $735 million by the next convention, 4 years from now, right? So, yeah, issuing strike fund payments, if it's done on a historical basis, is not going to threaten the strike fund. As a matter of fact, it has continued to grow rapidly since the increase to $500. There is one Actually, there's a couple factors that could change that. Okay, let's start here by going back to the Constitution and look at Article 16, Section 11C. The interest and earnings on investments received by the International Union Strike and Defense Fund shall be allocated to the International Union General Fund or to such other purpose as the International Executive Board shall determine to be in the best interest of the Union. And the reason we bolded that, right, was to point out something. And that is, if they felt the strike fund needed some shoring up, some additional funds, the interest and earnings generated by the strike fund could be returned. Okay, so what kind of interest and earnings are we talking about? Let's take a look. Let's say that $850 million, okay, is generating a return of 5%. That would be $42,500,000 without another additional penny of dues income going into it. So what would happen, right? I mean, that's the question. What could they do? Well, one thing they could do is this. Let's get a picture. If the earnings and investments on an annual basis are $42,500,000, and they're going to pay out all the strike fund benefits that have been paid out, projected at $28 million a year, that would leave $13 million, almost $14 million that they could spend on the general fund or allocate to the general fund. So they could keep the strike fund at $850 million if that's what their goal is. I don't think it's necessary personally, but okay, if it is, they could fund that all out of the earnings and investments on the strike fund. Okay? And if they don't want to do that, they can allocate it, as the Constitution says, to what other purpose they deem necessary, including the general fund. So with that said, it's obviously affordable. There are options available to the IAB to make sure it stays stable and strong. So the question becomes this. Is it fair to ask these members that are on strike to sacrifice financially, even as they have paid more dues into the strike fund with each raise? They paid those dues for a fund that's supposed to support them when they need it the most. The mission of the strike fund is to provide financial stability at one of the most vulnerable times in a member's career. Denying members this support while the fund collects dust and interest is not fulfilling the strike fund mission. Okay, it's totally ignoring what it's supposed to be doing. Increasing strike pay to $625 will help members maintain financial stability, support stronger morale during strikes, and let the company know that members will not be starved into a weak contract. So it's affordable. There are many options on how to deal with where we're at as far as the income and the expenditures. So ask your candidates for delegate when they come to you to support increasing strike pay. It makes us stronger as a union. It makes us stronger with stable, secure members. Thanks. Have a great day.